Welcome back to Session 4 of the EL Office Bites. This presentation is in collaboration with Dr. David Vasquez, and I am Dr. Sylvia Martinez. Joining us today is the AEDY team, Jess Haas, Kat Zimmerman, and Bethany Sidella. Session 4 will focus on filling out the template of the English Learner Individual Language Learning Plan. This session will also include a quick review of sessions 1 through 3. PATN's mission. The mission of the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, PATN, is to support the efforts and initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education and to build the capacity of local educational agencies to serve students who receive special education services. Our goal for each child is to ensure IEP teams begin with the general education setting with the use of supplementary aids and services before considering a more restrictive environment. The next slide is the background of the English learner. In this presentation, our sample student is Juan del Pueblo. This is an example of how the demographic information should be filled out. Include the name and date of birth of the student, the Pennsylvania Secure ID, and the grade level, parent or guardian, the home language, and if an interpreter or translation was used to fill out the student demographic information. What date was the student identified as an English learner? Did they have limited or interrupted formal education? And the date their services began. Also include, does the student qualify for special education services? And what is the disability category? The name of the certified ESL teacher should be included. Has the student been in U.S. schools for less than 1 year? Has it been consecutive or cumulative? What program model is used to service the student? Include the student's current English language proficiency level and the amount of ELD daily instruction. And last of all, when is the daily ELD instruction delivered? As you can see in the example presented to you, Juan receives EL-specific English-only instruction and mixed classes with English-only support. He receives 45 minutes of ESL instruction daily. The next slide is the WIDA screener taken in August 2019. Juan is a 9th grader. It is evident that Juan is a newcomer based on his WIDA scores. His highest score is oral language, a 1.5. The overall score is a 1.0. This is a screener to identify Juan as an English learner. The following slide demonstrates the results of his 2020 access scores as a 10th grade student and year 1 of Juan's access scores. His highest score is a 2.0 in oral language. The rest of the subset scores are 1.5, not including writing, which is still at a 1.0. The results are from the 9th through 12th grade access cluster test at a Tier A level. This slide presents the access results, and it demonstrates growth in all subtests. Juan is now an 11th grader, and this is his second time taking the access Tier B. You will note on the top left corner of the table, the access is identified with Access 2021, 11th grade, Year 2. The sample individual student report from Session 3 was used to demonstrate Juan's English proficiency growth from Year 1. It is evident his English proficiency is increasing each year. Review the individual student report for information on how his subtests are calculated. You will find that the reading score is considered 3 times as an individual reading subtest and combined scores with literacy and comprehension. Therefore, reading and comprehension would be the focus of instruction. The following slides will address the student background, school history, student strengths, and areas of need to be filled out for guidance in placement and lesson planning. This slide includes some examples of what you might add to give a snapshot view of the student's background and school history. It can include academic background, health, community, and family language support. It is recommended that the school staff review the student's background and school history. For example, previous schools attended, ELD programs, grades, school records, recommended instructional strategies, referrals, and discipline. Take a few seconds to review the examples used for Juan. This slide focuses on the data gathered about the student. What are the student's academic strengths, social, linguistic, and academic? Take a few seconds to review the examples used for Juan. Some of the data includes scores and the ESL teacher's observation of Juan's academic skills and social perception of school. The next slide is based on the data gathered to address Juan's areas of need. For example, what are the student's academic concerns or needs, which can include linguistic, social, and academic areas? Include the needs you want to address during placement. Take a few seconds to review the examples used for Juan. This slide is a focus on the English Learner Instructional Table. Briefly look at each column before completing the table. Think about brainstorming and using the following questions in the data gathered for preparation. What are the language expectations based on what the student can do at various stages of English language development in listening, speaking, reading, and writing? What proficiency level descriptors are specific to the student's proficiency level? How and why do you choose the following English language proficiency level descriptors for the identified student? What can the student do during ELD instruction? How will you scaffold classroom instruction and assessment tasks? Remember, this is an individualized plan for an EL student based on their English language proficiency level, access scores, proficiency level descriptors, content and language objectives specific to the skill, and should not be used as a general lesson for all English learners. The end goal is to address the instructional needs of the individual English learner student, so their language proficiency increases. The following slides will be a brief overview of sessions 2 and 3 of updated WIDA ELD Standards Framework, the 2020 edition. This slide is the WIDA ELD Standards Framework. There is no change to the ELD standard statements. Updated are key language uses: narrate, inform, explain, argue. What is new are language expectations. Another new addition is proficiency level descriptors. This slide is the WIDA standards statement. As you can see, there are not any changes to the standards statements. The next slide is an update on the key language uses. The key language uses now select genre families that appear across academic content standards: narrate, inform, explain, and argue. This next slide is a new addition to the WIDA framework. The grade level cluster language expectations are goals for content-driven language learning, adding specificity to the ELD standard statements and key language uses. They are statements most similar to what educators generally find in academic content standards. This slide is a new graphic of the language domains that is now the modes of communication and is part of the ELD standard from the previous slide. The following slide presents another new addition to the WIDA framework: grade level cluster proficiency level descriptors. PLDs describe student language development for activities that target WIDA language expectations. The following slides are a review of strategies and accommodations which can be found on Schoology. These are strategies to guide your lesson for individualized planning. The next slide is the do's and don'ts list of accommodations for ELs. This slide are instructional accommodations and are specific to an English learner student's academic and language needs. The following is a list of assessment accommodations that are acceptable for classroom assessments. However, please note accommodations for standardized assessments are different than classroom accommodations. The link for standardized assessments is included in slide 28. The following slides represent the resources used for individualized lesson planning for English learner students. This is the individual student report that was used to guide our lesson planning for the EL students' specific academic and language needs. We use this individual student report as an example to represent our student, Juan del Pueblo. The next slide is the proficiency level descriptors for grades 1 through 12 for reading. They are interpretive scores and are based on scale scores. The proficiency level score describes the student's performance in terms of the 6 WIDA English language proficiency levels. A link is included in slide 28 to view interpretive scores for listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The following slide is the WIDA proficiency levels descriptors for interpretive and expressive communication modes, which was also used for the lesson presented. The next few slides will demonstrate how we use the WIDA 2020 framework to create a lesson for an individual EL student based on their Access Individual Student Report or WIDA screener. This table is based on the individual student report and other resources representing Juan del Pueblo. Column 1 includes the ELD standard, Pennsylvania EL overlays, and the Pennsylvania core standards. The lesson is focusing on reading and reading comprehension. These are the 2 areas of need for Juan. Take a few seconds to view column 1. What standard is used? What are the Pennsylvania EL overlays? And last, what are the Pennsylvania core standards? Did we cover every standard for our lesson specific to Juan's academic need? The second column is a list of can-do descriptors and the process that illustrates what Juan is capable of at his English language proficiency level in all 4 language domains specific to reading. Take some time to view the process recounts, process explanations, and process arguments. The third column are possible strategies you might use to assist Juan in developing his reading and comprehension. Remember, these strategies are in Schoology. The fourth column is the goal you would develop for your EL student based on the placement and English language proficiency level. This column includes the grade level cluster language expectations, the ELD standard, and the WIDA proficiency level descriptors. Take some time to become familiar with column 4. On the next slide, column 4 continues. This continuation includes the grades 9 to 12 WIDA proficiency level descriptors for the interpretive communication mode, listening, reading, and viewing. The criteria is the discourse cohesion of language at the end of level 2. Please refer to the slide with the WIDA proficiency level descriptors, slide 24. This slide also includes the content and language objective. A gentle reminder on how generalizing a lesson will not work for all students. It must be specific to the student and their academic language needs to ensure English language proficiency growth. The next slide is the team signature page. This page requires all the stakeholders to sign off on Juan's English language individual language learning plan. The following slides end our session 4. This slide includes some links to the resources used in this presentation. The next slide welcomes any questions you may have in developing your English language individual language learning plan. The last slide has Dr. David Vasquez's contact information. Thank you for your participation in this session.